Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
What are we waiting for? Let's get this show started, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I was looking on my calendar, as a good friend of mine used to say. My grandfather, as a matter of fact. My grandfather was a funny guy. He was a really funny guy. And I noticed that on Tuesday of this week, it was the feast day of St. Francis Xavier Cabrini. And by the way, we're talking about Mother Cabrini, the modern-day saint.
Correct.
American-born, correct?
No. Naturalized.
I take that back. Italian. I
100%.
Okay, so, oh boy, here we go. He's coming at me, folks. We may have to make this one really quick. He's coming at me. No, Cabrini. Naturalized American. The
first naturalized American saint.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And that was about, I believe, in the 40s.
Exactly, yeah.
And what is she famous for, celebrated for?
Well, Mother Cabrini, to me, is a very interesting person. First of all, she was frail as can be, sickly. They never thought she would make it to adulthood, but she, like St. Teresa of Lisieux we were talking about before, she was just a young person who was very sick. And so she and the Holy Father would go at it quite a bit because she had it in her mind to be the apostle to all of the immigrants that came to the United States. So she was going to follow them and establish social clubs and make sure that they would keep their religious faith and so on and so forth. So she would really work hard to take care of the Italian immigrants. That meant that she had to make many trips from Italy to the U.S. The Holy Father said, you're not going to make it. You're too sick. You can't be traveling like that. Don't forget, in those days, you're on a steamboat or whatever they called it.
Absolutely.
And, you barely could get through the crowds that were going on there, and things were not sanitary and so on.
Well, I believe that back in those days, there was what they called steerage.
Yeah, steerage.
You were basically just pushed into the basement of the boat.
Yeah. But she didn't mind. She had to follow the Italian immigrants. And now, it's interesting that today, almost in not all the major cities, but a lot of the major cities, her name is everywhere. For example, she established so many hospitals, hard to keep track of, as far west as Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, even south, Louisiana. And so you have all of these hospitals and schools as well, high schools as well. She's revered by the Italian immigrants because she was so prominent in their lives. And this is why I think eventually she rose to sainthood, because they pretty much, when they had problems, they knew they could depend on Mother Cabrini. Mm-hmm. So she was a mother to all, if you want. One of the things, she was laid to rest in a place called West Park, New York. Mm-hmm. And I have a funny story about that. The Christian Brothers of Ireland, have our training place in, I say our still because I was one of those brothers, but it's in West Park, 1,000 acres, right on the Hudson. Mm-hmm. At that point, the Hudson is a mile wide. So when you're going upstate New York, we would say, you would find all of these beautiful mansions that were owned by people like the Durkee Food Seasonings. Mm-hmm. You had Vanderbilts and so on and so forth. All of these mansions that could not be privately owned anymore because the taxes would be phenomenal. So religious houses bought them. So the Christian Brothers place was right next to the Sacred Heart, which was Mother Cabrini's place.
Oh, no kidding.
And the confines of the property were the same. So it was the same confines. So whenever somebody died, on the Mother Cabrini side, they certainly would do the burial right there on their grounds and so on. The one thing they were lacking, though, was water. And so here they are digging for water, and sure enough, they struck water on their property. Well, lo and behold, it was the Christian Brothers water that had been going through.
Come on.
So there was a bit of a property dispute on that. Only because through Mother Cabrini's intercession, on different properties, they did find water. So she thought she could do it all. Well, not she, but her sisters thought maybe it could be done.
Yeah. Do you know the year on that?
Yes, I would guess 1960 or so.
No, the Great War of 1960.
But it was really
the Irish Christian Brothers.
And of course, the way the Italians would bury people was something else at that time. First of all, Italians tend to be, not all, but most of them tend to be very emotional. And so very often, whenever there was a funeral over at the Mother Cabrini side, some of the Italians would throw themselves in. Oh, you cannot leave me at this time.
Oh,
you
wow.
know? The Irish are much more matter-of-fact about it, so we didn't have that theatrical type of scene whenever there was a burial. But we had properties right next door to each other. I mean, we were right on the Hudson. If you're going up 9W, on the right-hand side, you would have the Hudson. Absolutely beautiful, as I said. So you had, first comes Mother Cabrini, a little bit north, and you would have the Christian Brothers, Santa Maria. So we had that connection together. But she established all of these religious houses. It's amazing how many, but by this frail woman going back and forth to Rome to fight with the Holy Father, basically, who would say, well, you can't do that. You're not healthy enough, and so on. Well, she fooled them all. And she lived to be in her mid-60s, I believe.
Wow.
And in that time established almost as many houses, and I say houses, that really incorporated schools as well as hospitals. So she's known out west, particularly, when I say out west, in Seattle. Cabrini Hospital is a big name. Chicago, Cabrini Hospital is a big name. So, and then out on the East Coast, too. So she has established quite a bit for such a little woman, not an American at the time. She became an American, obviously naturalized, and then eventually a saint.
I believe that her actual shrine is in Chicago.
Oh, definitely.
And I know that people will make a pilgrimage to that shrine as well in hopes of, as so many people do, with various shrines around the United States and around the world, hoping for some sort of possible miracle.
But the main shrine is in New York, even though the one in Chicago is big. You know, well, she followed the immigrants wherever they went.
Right.
As a matter of fact, to me, it's mind-boggling because I don't imagine Colorado as being a place where there are a lot of Italians, and yet there is. But Colorado seems a little bit, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Out of the way. And she tried to make sure that they would hold on to their faith. You know, when immigrants came to the United States, particularly from Germany and from Italy, there was this whole idea of maintaining the roots that they came with. The faith that they had was something that they wanted to keep. And, for example, if you go through Ohio, you see a lot of the German communities because they really were strong in maintaining the faith there. With the Italians, it was either Chicago or New York, and then even out west for that matter. But she made sure, she ventured out to all of these places. I'll tell you, she was such a popular saint that a number of shrines were established in her honor. I'm sure that you don't see that in too many other saints.
All right, I'm going to ask you a destiny question. Do you think people are born to be saints?
I think all of us are born to be saints.
I know in our own way we can all be saints. But
I know the ones that stand out.
The ones that truly stand out.
The ones that really stand out are the people that put aside any type of vanity. They have a goal in their minds that they're working towards, and they're going to keep on track until they accomplish what they want to accomplish. Whether it be, in the case of Mother Cabrini, to make sure that the Italians would hold on to their faith, because now they're coming to a new country. Are they going to abandon all of that? She wanted to make sure that they would keep their faith to the Catholic Church.
Of course, you're the son of immigrants.
Definitely.
And why was there a concern that they might not necessarily maintain their roots in Catholicism?
Well, because once you leave your homeland,
Sure.
they said, "Oh my God, they're going to the Wild West,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
anything goes.
Yeah, that's right.
They're going to forget God and everybody else, huh?"
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that was the
What
mentality.
happens in America stays in America.
That's right. See, America was a bigger Las Vegas type thing.
Sure.
But anyway, it was interesting. But the mentality of the people is now they're leaving, and now they're in a new country. Well, she wanted to make sure that they would stick to their religion and that they would be practicing wherever they might be.
Or if they needed just basic help. Concierge, tourist guide. Who do I go to at this huge hotel? Cabrini.
And most of them were poor, so they were looking for a place where they could get some social help, making friends and things of this sort. For a little woman, and a woman who had to learn English, she did a tremendous amount of work, and I could see where she would easily be recognized by a lot of people.
In asking this, I feel foolish, but I'll ask you, did you ever run across or know anyone that knew and had met or spent any time at all with Mother Cabrini?
No.
Okay. But it was possible. There could have been some likelihood.
Yeah, but I was born 1940, so...
Okay. All right. Well, I just thought maybe in some of your travels, some of the elder priests
Now, Mother
out
Teresa, I knew her, but
You actually knew her?
Oh, very well.
You're kidding me.
While I was in Rome, I did a 9-day retreat for her sisters, and she was there.
Wow. Did you know that you were in the presence of somebody very, very special?
There's no question.
No doubt, really.
Because this was towards the end of her life. She was already in her mid-80s. I was fascinated by her strength, her presence. I still remember the poor thing. She had to stand for 3 hours after we finished the conference because local folks found out that she was there in this area where we were having the retreat. I'll explain where that is in a moment. But they were coming in long lines, and so she would just give them a little medal that she had held on to and blessed and so on. The sisters, her sisters, have a couple of places in Rome. One of them is a little bit in the outskirts where they even grow their own produce. And so it's a pretty large area. And every so often these big trucks come into the compound and they leave off food that they're donating. But meanwhile, there are gardens all around that are growing vegetables, and so they use that too. Mother Teresa would, we're switching to a different saint now, but anyway,
Right.
Mother Teresa.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
similar.
I'm
But Mother
going to
Teresa-
connect the dots at the end, trust me.
Mother Teresa would certainly have a retreat for her sisters coming from all over the world. And it's interesting that the basic language was English. And so they asked me to do a 9-day retreat for them. It was fascinating because I was in a little alcove in a little room on the side there where I spent the 9 days.
Yeah.
And then they sat in the chapel. They did not have kneelers. They did not have chairs. So they would sit right on the floor. And as the more like an Asian way of sitting on the floor,
Absolutely.
it's like, you know how they cross their legs?
I
You're
do.
squatting down, basically. And so that's what, at the time, let's see, different groups come at different times. But I had a group of about 40 or 45 of the nuns. And they each had one extra sari, obviously, just one. The food was minimal. So they each have their little iron bowls and a spoon. And so there's a big trough that they would, there's no such thing as a mirror. That's vanity, this type of thing. Mother Teresa was very down the line, very strict. Their cot was just a cot. That's where they slept at night.
With a blanket, I would hope.
Yeah, they would have a blanket. In the beginning, Mother Teresa would just let them eat rice, but then the Holy Father said no, they have to have protein as
Sure,
well.
of course.
So that she would put a little bit of protein in there.
Wow.
Not she, but she would ask them to do that. She had her idea of doing penance was really to the extreme. At the time I was there was towards the end of her term as the Mother General, and also the end of her life, basically. Mother Nirmola, it's an Indian name, she was the new general, and she was there too at the same time. So was herself and Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, of course, was leaving, as it were, and she was. But anyway, I was really fascinated by her strength. I have some funny stories about what I had to eat at night. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of an interesting situation. And I really, I'll never forget it. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, and you offered me the opportunity to ask you where it was. You said, I'll tell you later where we had it.
Oh, it was right in the compound.
Okay.
And they have housing, but they had this little area that was off to the side.
Yeah.
Where I was there. And, of course, in those days, I would have to wear not that far away and not too long ago, I should say.
But this was in Rome.
It was in Rome,
sure.
Yeah. In the outskirts of Rome.
Okay.
And so, I would wear my cassock.
Sure.
And then go into the chapel. And, of course, as they say, the poor thing sat right on the ground. There was no chairs or anything like that.
Did you say Mass for them every day?
Oh, sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a conversation one-on-one with Mother Teresa? Several? Many?
No, not many, but
few.
several. Yeah, but the thing is this, that the...
Fascinated by this.
Yeah, the conversations were not extensive because she was on her way to do something and I was on my way to do something.
Yeah.
Certainly I would have to hear confessions of the nuns. But,
well,
and it's the whole idea, people say, well, it's like listening to people throw popcorn at you or something.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But in any case, it was a great experience for me.
Let's bundle this all together then, okay? So,
sure.
Two absolutely incredible women, Mother Cabrini, Mother Teresa.
No question.
But you had the opportunity in your lifetime to look into the eyes of a saint. And that to me would be...
I get chicken skin.
I bet you. That's what I think.
But and to think that Mother Teresa, there are two different kinds of saints. I mean, Mother Teresa was somebody who was sent to teach in India in a very wealthy school. And so she was there for a lady of Loreto in Ireland. That's where she did her novitiate, and then she's Albanian, and so but then they sent her to India. So in India she was in this fancy school, and every day she looked around her, and in the streets of New Delhi and places like that, she saw the poverty of the people. She said, "I'm in the wrong business."
Yeah.
Just joking, but that's her feeling.
The genesis of
so
how she got into
She left that order and established her own.
Wow.
And so her mission was to take care of those that nobody else would even go near. Those who were dying and everybody was afraid to touch them. And she felt that if they feel a human hand on their face, on their hand, they're going to feel loved by God.
Yeah.
And so she would try to remind them this is the love of God.
Yeah.
And to think of what poverty...
those are the pictures that we most remember of Mother Teresa.
Yeah, the people dying in the streets.
Yes.
That's who she would take care of.
Oh.
Well, needless to say, we all know that the order grew in so many different ways. But it's a different kind of mission work that Mother Cabrini had. But two, leaving their own countries, and two people with terrific fortitude and strength from two tiny women. I mean,
that's kind of like that's where I was going to go. You stole my clothes.
No, you go ahead.
No, you
so
stole.
anyway.
No, that's basically it. Thank you, as always. I mean, I'm glad I wore a hoodie because you gave me the chills a couple of times. Hey, listen, have a nice afternoon, will you?
I wish you the same.
I love getting together with you. That's
Me
it for
too.
That's it
Thank
for now.
you.
We'll see you next time on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I'm Ken Calvert.
See you soon. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.